Hello everyone, my name is Joshua and this is the 177th video of my video journal series. Today's date is Tuesday the 4th of August 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. And today was a pretty busy day at uni. Just like last week, today I had 4 classes and it was packed. I had a tutorial in the morning, then straight afterwards it was a lecture, then a toot, and then around 30 minutes after toot number 3 ended, I had toot number 4. And yeah, my day was pretty packed. And I got to meet up with one of my friends today at uni, and I got to chat with him and his friend afterwards, so it wasn't all bad. But I remember on my way to uni on the train, it was packed, and that's because the service before the service I got on was cancelled. So I was waiting for this service to arrive in 3 minutes once I arrived at the station, but that service got cancelled. It passed by the station, so I had to wait another 10 minutes for the next one. And when I waited for that train, it was packed. Everyone wanted to try to go inside because everyone missed the earlier train. People needed to go into the city, and mind you, I was traveling at peak hour. So yeah, it was quite chaotic, and it was pretty much like standing room only. But even then, you're like squished like sardines. And anyway, we were on the train going to Central Station, and it was so crowded that they actually had to like skip stops. I think they skipped like one stop on the way there, or they had to quickly get everyone out and then everyone back in. But it seemed like when people left the train to get off at a certain stop, more people just came in, and I think they had to actually the train actually had to terminate at Central Station. It was supposed to go further than that, but it actually ended at Central Station because of some like technical issue or technical fault. They said they don't really give like proper explanations why trains just suddenly stop at certain stations. They're like, all right, everyone, get off board. We have to do something now. Maybe it's because of some timetabling issue, or maybe because little error in the system caused like a butterfly effect where now all the trains are delayed and then they're gonna start canceling services, or maybe terminate some certain trains at Central Station because they don't want to hold back the ones behind it. I don't know. City trains aren't really transparent sometimes when it comes to train issues and faults. And if you're a commuter on the Sydney Trains network, you'll know what I'm talking about. Where you'll be on a train and then it just starts like missing stops, and they say, "Oh yeah, we just have to skip over X, Y, and Z stations because of some technical error." But I'm like, well, what if I'm already on the train, And then I'm like, oh damn, I missed that stop. It does happen. I know in Germany, Deutsche Bahn has like a infamous reputation for you know for their trains always running late, and then having to stop at random stations, and then you gotta like hop on another train to complete your journey. That's kind of like that in Sydney. And I like to say we have a good public transport network, but it has some heavy sort of downsides to it, things that weigh it down, and one of them is just Sydney trains and I guess reliability. And mind you, I always schedule ahead of time. I always account for delays and cancellations and trains to terminate at random stations. So I wasn't really late to uni, but it meant that I couldn't really have anything to eat because I was just like, all right, well, I only have this amount of time left before I need to show up to my first class. It's not going to be enough time to, I guess, have a proper meal that I actually had in my backpack. Um, like a microwave meal. I brought with me one of those I think it was like a curry microwave meal that I was planning on eating before my first class, but I was like, now I don't really have that much time. I have to save it for the afternoon. So I was quite hungry for most of the day, all because of a train fault. And that's the thing with Sydney trains and I guess Sydney's public transport system is that it's great on paper, but then in actuality, as soon as a minor fault happens, the whole system, just gets completely shut off. It just breaks down because of how interconnected it is. Um, I remember waiting on train station platforms for like an hour, waiting for a train to arrive because it keeps on getting like delayed or cancelled, or because there's something wrong in one of the city stations, like a signal error or fault, and it causes like such a big like backlog of delays and errors and cancellations. It's so annoying. And then once a train does come, it's so packed you can't even get in anyways. I've been on packed trains before in Tokyo, I remember, shoulder to shoulder, but at least their trains show up on time and, they don't really cancel on you. Um, and then everyone moves out the way for you. On Sydney trains, I mean, people do move out the way for me. I really haven't had an issue with that, but like, you know, I guess with transparency and I guess communication, right? When you're on a train station platform waiting for a train, you want to know what's happening, but then they just say on the intercoms, "All right, well, sorry, all our display screens are down. We can't tell you when the next train arrives. It's just some technical error." But they should just say, "All right, we'll hop on another train service or use a bus or tram or ferry." Because those will just be quicker methods of travel than waiting for a train, which you can't even hop on. So yeah, I guess today I said my day was good, but there was that sort of train kerfuffle, and it didn't really affect me. All I had to do was wait an extra 10 minutes for the next train. But imagine if you were like, all right, well, I wanted to go to X station, but I ended up at Y, so I gotta complete the remainder of the trip on another train or bus or whatever. It really is annoying. But I guess it'll be more annoying if you're traveling regionally, right? If you're in a country like Germany and Deutschbahn, and then I guess if anyone's from Germany watching this video, you understand what I'm saying. It's when you're trying to go to a train, when you hop on a train to Berlin, for instance, and it drops you off at some random town, and I'm like, all right, well now you have to continue the rest of your journey on another train. You know, uh, maybe when I do my mini Europe trip in the I don't know future, if I ever go to Germany, I'll have to brace myself for their railway network. But at least I know about it beforehand. And I don't like to clown on Germany's train system, but like, come on, they have high speed trains, but what's the point of having high speed trains if they don't show up on time? I'm sorry. At least you guys have high speed trains here in Australia. We don't, as of recording this, and our trains aren't really better. In fact, in a lot of ways they're worse. Our regional trains are always like, running late. If they run on time, it's a miracle. But I'm very much interested in trains. All right, I like riding trains, and I like sitting down on trains. I hate it when I can't really get a seat. And some of the older trains, the seats don't reverse, so you know, you end up getting a lot of people who waste seats, and people who like. I hate these people. People on the free seater. All right, in a Sydney train, right, a Sydney double decker train has the 3x2 seating. That means on one side there'll be three seats, and on the other will be two seats. Right, that's the standard for double decker trains here in Sydney. A lot of people will like to sit on the free seater, but sit in the aisle, and there's like no one next to them, so they end up hogging two other seats next to them. And obviously, you have to go up to this person and say, "All right, can you move over so that I can sit down?" People who like sit in the aisle seat of a three seater, and then there's no one next to them. I'm like, well, you know, scooch over a bit, all right. Most people are antisocial. They're not gonna like antisocial in the sense that they don't want to speak to people whilst on a train, and then you're just like blocking the you know access to the two other seats right next to you. I don't really like that. Whenever I sit on a free seater, I'm like, all right, I know that I have to sit on the window side if no one else is taking out the other two seats. And I'm fully prepared if somebody decides to hop in the aisle seat. Uh, in that like sense, you at least have a one seat gap right next to you. Unlike the two seater where you'll be like squashed together, you have like a one seat gap, and then if you want to get off, you just tell the person, "Hey, I just want to get off," And if you're ever on a Sydney train, especially while it's packed, if you're on the free seater side, then just sit in the aisle. Sit in the not in the aisle. Sit in the window side, so then you can free up the spaces next to you. All right. I just hate seeing a packed train. People standing in the sort of uh, walkway, and then there's like empty seats just scattered. But due to the fact that you have to sit next to someone or ask someone, "Hey, can you scooch over?" You know, the seats remain pretty much empty because no one wants to, I guess, talk, or they're not bothered, or it's not worth, I guess, a social interaction or nuisance. But yeah, I guess that's just my little train rant. Um, there's nothing wrong with, I guess, packed trains if they're frequent, and if it's in a busy city area or during peak hour. But having a packed train that's delayed, cancelled, slows down, stops for whatever reason, just adds to a little bit of that sort of frustration. And I guess, people say, "Oh, what, Josh, why don't you drive? You can't rely on trains forever." And I'm like, all right, well, I don't really like driving. Driving's too stressful. Catching a train's a lot more, relaxed in my eyes. It's a lot more chill. And even on a packed train, I'm like, oh, this is better than driving. It's better than having like you know, driving in like a packed car. You have like two babies screaming at the top of their lungs. "Ah!" Being a dad, and you're like, oh, well, that's pretty annoying. And there's been moments where I've been on trains and buses, and you had to hear babies cry and kids muck around. But anything beats being stuck on a freeway, bumper to bumper, and you're like, all right, I'm ready 30 minutes late to work. Like that opening scene from Falling Down, when a guy's stuck in traffic, that'll be my nightmare. If I'm stuck on a bus in traffic, at least I can move around and stretch my legs, and I'm not the one driving. But being stuck in the car, you can't do anything. You gotta focus on the road. But anyway, I can most probably close that book about my train experience today. I'm gonna close that one, put it to the side. And what else really happened today? Oh, nothing much really. I'm glad I have a Wednesday, Thursday off. And actually, I went to the pub today. I got to meet up with this a friend of mine. I think I might have mentioned before. Um, uh, and it was regarding like an assessment, because I wanted to originally incorporate this person I spoke to in the pub today, in one of my university assignments. I was like, hey, would you be interested in participating in one of my university assignments? Essentially, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, all right, well, I actually got a better recommendation for you. I can recommend you this person. And obviously, I want to keep everyone's names confidential. I don't want to reveal them on camera, but yeah, he recommended to me this other person which I can use for this assignment. And mind you, I'm still within the, I guess, planning stages of what I want to do for this first assignment of mine. But, I feel like I got a very good lead, and I was like, all right, even though this person declined, I have a backup option. I can choose this person, and everything's good. And I feel like the hardest bit of doing any assignment where you have to incorporate other people is just trying to find that person. So yeah, it is quite tough, but I'm feeling a lot more confident, and I'll see where that assignment goes. Um, and that's just my personal life. I know I got a bunch of other assignments in uni uh, coming up, and some of them are like group activities. Some of them you're gonna do like surveys and stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and I always like to go the extra mile. I don't like making my assignments generic, or my projects just bland. I like to put some creativity, put some effort, and really try to like make it interesting, sort of. So yeah, I can most probably close that book about university, and any. Well, in when I went to the pub, I took the train to go to the pub, and the train was pretty all right. There weren't any delays or anything, so that's good. At least there weren't any train faults that I experienced in the evening. And this pub, I should mostly talk about the pub itself. The pub itself was pretty good. I'd never been there before, but I ordered a rump steak with some chips and mash and gravy because I was starving. I only had that one microwave meal today, so I was like, all right, well, I need to grab something to eat. I don't care. So I ended up getting a rump steak. It was pretty good, medium rare, obviously. Um, and the chips and mash were also pretty good as well. Portion sizes were okay. Um, and I've definitely had most of the better meals elsewhere, and I've heard from other people, it's okay. But yeah, it was honestly just refreshing to actually eat a proper meal today. Like obviously, it's not like money or anything that's holding me back. It's just time when I'm constantly running around between classes. Like literally, there was no break today. Um, like sizable. Actually, well, in the morning there wasn't really a break. I was just like had to like run, run, run. Um, in the like afternoon there was like a half-hour break between my second final and my final class, and that's where I had my microwave meal, like this mini curry thing. But apart from that, I was just like, all right, one class ended, hop into another class. That class ended, hop into another class. Um, I've just been all over the place. And I know yesterday's video was about vending machines and convenience, and today I actually used the vending machine to get a snack and a can of drink. So yeah, I do rely on vending machines. Obviously, not like the niche ones or anything, but stuff with like soft drinks and chips and all that, stuff I need on the go because I don't have time. And that those come in handy, obviously. But yeah, it's just nothing is more terrible than going to a class and you're like hungry or you're tired or you just need like, coffee or whatever. Um, and yeah, I wish like some days I can just like go out of class for a bit, maybe like 5 minutes, and just like eat my sandwich or whatever. I wouldn't blame if I was a teacher or a professor, I wouldn't blame any of my students if they just wanted to go outside, catch a breather, or have a sandwich. Mind you, I'm not like a teacher or whatever. I don't know really how to teach, but you can't really focus on an empty stomach. So yeah. And obviously now recording this, it's pretty late at night. So if I didn't have that steak at the pub, I would have actually yeah, I had to like come home. I'm like, all right, well now I have to like make something. But yet again, I'm so tired. I gotta hit the bed, and you just your whole schedule's mixed up basically. Um, but yeah, I don't really. I guess like to really conclude this video, I know I started talking about trains, but I really go a long distance, uh, hop from one subject to another, really. Um, I guess trains are somewhat unpredictable in Sydney at least. Um, today's sort of like train error or train cancellation didn't really affect me, but I can imagine if someone was already running late to work, if they had to hop on my train only to not reach their final destination, no pun intended, I mean final destination, they would they if they just the train suddenly stopped a few stations short, they would also be pretty peeved. And I don't really like traveling during peak hour. In fact, I try to avoid it. So I guess trying to avoid traveling in peak times can also be another thing I could do. But sometimes it can't be helped. You'll notice like even half an hour before peak hour begins here in Sydney, the trains are quite desolate. But when peak hour hits, once a certain service pulls up into the station, everyone just like crowds on to there. And I get it, people have time and all that, but I'm like, man, I just wish this train would be so packed. I know it's peak hour and all, but maybe it's on me. Maybe I should just wake up a little bit early, catch the earlier train, grab a seat, get to absorb everything in. And here in Sydney, you know, we actually have a discounted fares if you travel during the off-peak hours of the day. So yeah, you end up paying less if you travel during the off-peak. If you travel during the peak hour, it'll charge you a little bit more, which I think is a good system. Incentivizes people to hop on trains early, and especially when you have to factor in cancellation delays and train skipping stops and terminating at random stations. You have to factor that in. And I guess once you factor that, account for that, I don't really mind trains, but yet again, I think Sydney trains has a long way to go. And I think nowadays we've got like metro, light rail, like more bus links as well. So if those things happen, there are always going to be like alternative methods of travel. But yeah, I guess it beats the City Rail days. I heard City Rail was pretty bad as the rail operator here in Sydney. It was a previous government agency which were responsible for running trains here in Sydney, and it had a infamous reputation or being quite bad. And I guess people like to say nowadays Sydney trains is bad, but I don't really think so. I think it's an improvement, especially if you look at all the developments that's happened on Sydney trains and Sydney Metro and all that. I wish I just had more, I guess, frequent or I guess reliable access towards Sydney train services. Everyone dreams of living right next to a metro stop, but I guess for me, that'll be a long way away. But anyway, yeah, and obviously, um, oh yeah, I have that birthday thing I mentioned before on Saturday. I might have said Sunday, um, last time I mentioned this, but it's on Saturday. So yeah, there's a birthday thing, and other than that, yeah, I should most probably take. Come to think about it, I should most probably take more videos and pictures for my Sydney A Work in Progress project. I know I keep on bringing that up. But yeah, today in the city I was like pretty busy, time constraint, but I'll like to take more footage and take more material for that project. But anyway, um, and I feel like, all right, final point. I feel like with that project I mentioned on my main channel, Sydney A Work in Progress, um, is that I often find myself taking pictures of the exact same places or footage of the exact same places. So I've been trying to like mix it up, because obviously when I go to uni, I end up taking the exact same route, and I realize that if I were to take footage of this exact route every single day, it's not really going to be interesting. So that's why I guess some days I don't really record, to save that sort of storage on my phone for other things, for other places. I like to spot areas with like change, So yeah, hopefully I can upload that like every week on my main channel. That's just like a little update from my main channel. But yeah, seems like it's going along pretty well, so I'm not really fussed about it. But anyway, I guess I'll catch you all tomorrow, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, see you, take care. Catch you all tomorrow.